Hello everybody! We had our Christmas card picture day today, which is why I look a little more put together than normal. But we're going to be reading chapter 5 of The Puppy Place, Mocha. So if you could follow along, starting on page 33, that'd be pretty fab. While we're at it, maybe we should get Buddy microchipped, Mom said. We've been talking about that for a long time, and this is a good reminder that it's a smart thing to do. If Mocha had a chip, we could be calling her owners right now. But Buddy would never run away, said Charles. Dr. Elvis shook his head. I've known plenty of dog owners who said that and were proven wrong. You just never know. I think your mom's right. Better safe than sorry. The process really doesn't hurt the dog at all. And if that's what you're worried about. Page 34. While Mom got Buddy from the van, the vet took some blood from Mocha's leg using a big needle that Charles did not like looking at. Then he asked Charles to hold Mocha while he worked with Buddy. Charles sat down on a bench next to Becky, and Mocha jumped up next to him. He pulled her onto his lap. She did not seem bothered at all by the poking and prodding she'd been through. She wagged her tail and licked Charles's face. Then she put her paws up on his shoulders to give him a big, warm puppy hug. This is fun. I wonder what we'll do next. Charles laughed as he hugged her back, then tried to help her settle down. She squirmed in his lap and snuffled at his pockets while Charles and Becky petted her, trying to keep her calm and quiet. Well, aren't you a cutie? Dr. Elvis said as he lifted Buddy onto the table. With quick, confident motions, he took some blood, then used another needle, even bigger, to insert a tiny microchip under the skin on the back of Buddy's neck. Done, he announced a second later. Buddy had not even whimpered. Dr. Elvis petted Buddy. If I had to guess, I'd say this guy's part Jack Russell Terrier and, he stroked his chin, maybe part Chow. But we'll know more when the lab processes the blood sample. It'll take a few weeks, but I'll be in touch as soon as I have results on both dogs. A few weeks? Charles wished they didn't have to wait so long. Not that it really mattered. Buddy and Mocha were fantastic dogs, no matter what breeds they were. He hugged Mocha close as Mom and Uncle Stephen gave Dr. Elvis their phone numbers and other information. Hey, said Aunt Becky in an odd voice. Look what she just pulled out of her pocket. Of your pocket. Charles looked down at Mocha. There, trailing from her mouth, was the red handkerchief she had found outside the night before. The handkerchief that belonged to the mysterious stranger. He'd forgotten all about it after he'd stuffed it into his pocket. This is great, said Becky. Great? Why? Charles was not sure he liked the way Becky's eyes were gleaming. That usually meant he was in for an adventure, the kind of adventure that did not always turn out so well. Don't you get it? She pulled the big silky square gently from Mocha's mouth. Now we have the perfect excuse to ring the intercom button on the big gate. She took a closer look at the handkerchief. Check it out. There's a monogram on it. A-M-I. I wonder what those initials stand for. She began to run through some possible names. Abe Morrow Inkpot. Arthur Madison Ishkabibble. Alexander Migglestone Iverson. Charles felt his stomach knot up, and it stayed knotted for hours. Before they headed back to the farmhouse, Mom reminded Uncle Stephen that Aunt Abigail had asked them to go to the supermarket for a few last-minute items. Oops, said Uncle Stephen, patting his pocket. I forgot to bring the list she made, but I think I remember most of the things on it. Becky and Charles waited in the van while Mom and Uncle Stephen did the shopping. Charles was quiet, but Becky chattered on about the handkerchief, the gate, the initials. She couldn't wait to go push the intercom button. We'll go right after lunch, said Becky. We can say we want to walk down to the store. Charles loved going to the general store down the road. It was a warm and welcoming place with a wood stove surrounded by tables and chairs, where local folks liked to sit and chat while they drank coffee. The store wasn't a supermarket, but it had most of the basics, like eggs and milk and canned tomatoes, so Aunt Abigail often sent Charles and Becky to pick up some last-minute ingredients she needed. In the summer, they could buy ice cream cones from the takeout window and sit on the porch overlooking the lake while they ate them. But today, Charles knew the trip to the store was just an excuse. Stephanie will be suspicious, Charles said. Remember when we were hiding Flash in the barn and we kept going down to the store for dog food? Stephanie figured out that we were up to something. When they had found Flash, the border collie puppy, Charles and Becky had decided to keep him a secret. That had not lasted long. Not with their busybody older sisters around. Let her wonder, said Becky with a shrug. As it turned out, Stephanie and Lizzie were busy cutting out pictures to make holiday collages when Becky and Charles told their moms they were going to go to the store. "Great," said Aunt Abigail. "Can you get me one more stick of butter and some lemons? They were on my list, but somebody forgot." She made a face at Uncle Stephen, but she was smiling as she pushed back her hair with a flour-covered hand. Aunt Abigail had once been a pastry chef at a fancy hotel, and she loved to cook and bake. "Somebody is very sorry, since somebody was looking forward to your lemon tart," said Uncle Stephen. The kitchen was a mess, with flour spilled everywhere and pots and pans clattering as Aunt Abigail bustled to and fro, mixing and stirring and preparing for the next day's feast. Charles could hardly wait for all the delicious desserts they would have. He went over to sniff an apple cake that sat cooling on the counter. "Let's go," said Becky, pulling on his sleeve. "Take the dogs with you, please," said Mom. They could both use some exercise. A few moments later, Charles held Mocha's leash and Becky held Buddy's as they headed down the long driveway. Charles eyed the corner of the red handkerchief trailing out of Becky's pocket. He was curious about its owner, too, but he still wasn't sure about this plan of Becky's. Before he knew it, they were standing at the gate with the big stone pillars. The gate looked even more imposing now that they were right next to it. Its black iron scroll work loomed over them, and the pillars on either side of it towered high above their heads. Charles's heart thumped in his chest as Becky held her hand over the large black button on the silver metal intercom. "Ready?" she asked. Charles drew in a breath and nodded. "I guess," he answered. Becky pushed the button. Nothing happened. She pushed it again. This time, the intercom erupted with the unmistakable sound of a pack of vicious dogs barking their heads off. Wowzers. What a good chapter. Alrighty. I hope you have a marvelous rest of your day, that you feel loved by Jesus, and that you know how worthy you are today and every day. Love you so much. Bye. Get working.